Heyo. Welcome to Essential Question 1 that we got to worry about for Unit 1. Early Man and Early River Valley Civilizations. Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia is not an empire. There's no such thing as Mesopotamians, okay? Mesopotamia means the land between the two rivers. The two rivers that we are talking about, of course, are your Euphrates and your Tigris River. And what we see develop in Mesopotamia, and I already forgot to do that all the time. What we are going to be talking about with Mesopotamia are individual city-states. So let's take a look. Euphrates and Tigris rivers. Most of what is modern-day Iraq, we talked about this the other day in class, it's located in Southwest Asia, and it is located in what is considered the Middle East sub-region of your AP World History sub-regions. Now, these two rivers, the Euphrates and Tigris River, often have erratic flooding. The Euphrates and Tigris rivers are often seen as sort of a necessary evil in some respects, in that you need them to sustain this large agricultural enterprise that's going on here, which is the basis of all of these river valley civilizations. They're river valleys. But at the same time, it can cause from time to time destruction and, death and all that sort of stuff. So overall, we see a pessimistic religion develop. Two examples of this pessimism are Hammurabi's Law Code, which we'll look at in class, in which most of the laws were based on revenge, retribution, and the Epic of Gilgamesh. It was, I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's not a happy ending. Also, along with its geography of the erratic flooding, you have low-lying plains that are open to invasion. This leads to individual city-states from time to time taking over. Sumer is the first, okay? But later on, you have time periods where Ur is in charge. You later on have Sargon, an Akkadian, who invades the region and takes over much of the area. And then you have a Babylonian empire later on with Hammurabi. So, let's talk about Sumer. About 3000 BCE, they control a number of the city-states with similar culture and governments. Typically, whichever city-state happened to be ruling at the time, the other city-state sort of followed suit and mirrored them in some respects. Dynastic rule, it's based on hereditary. And we typically saw slavery that was, as we talked about before, it was non-hereditary and not for life. Your two main types were typically those who opposed the rule and became prisoners of war. Way too big. It's just one take, Termina. There we go. Prisoner of war or debt slaves, some sort of indentured servitude. Okay, is typically what we saw. Next slide. All right. Major Sumerian contributions. They are the first group to really emerge out of this area of Mesopotamia as becoming dominant. They invent the wheel and the cart. It's an invention for trade. The reason for this, it's not just like, ooh, we invented it, yay, is that Mesopotamia lacks stone materials, and so they need to go ahead and develop this trade as a result of needing these natural resources. Cuneiform, which is pictured right there. Cuneiform, it's a series of sort of wedge-shaped pictograms. It is our earliest writing system, cuneiform, in which Sumer uses. Ziggurats. That's a ziggurat. Yay! It is the center of social, economic, political, and religious life. It was its main purpose serves as a religious temple, but it is also where you would find central marketplaces, places to trade, places to buy food and socialize, all that sort of stuff. In Sumer, and this is going to change in the area of Mesopotamia later on, your earliest political leaders were temple priests. There was a close tie between, and we see this, it is typical of common trends that we see in early river valley civilizations, in which you have a close association of religious authority and political and social authority. They invent the sundial. Pretty important when your main occupation for, somewhere around 90% of your population is probably going to be tied to agriculture. You also have the invention of an official position for a church or political scribe. This was done for record keeping. It was important to keep accurate records so that they would know when to plant, when to bring in a harvest, and also for, as mentioned before, for trading purposes. All right. You have a 12-month calendar that is invented by the Sumerians, which obviously still gets used a whole lot. You have a sexagesimal number system. This is a number system that is based on 6 or 60. Okay? We still see this a lot. Okay? 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. Okay? So this is still a number system that we see fragments of it today. Also, the aforementioned Epic of Gilgamesh. It is overall a pessimistic tale, which we will discuss in class. It is maybe not the oldest, but it is the oldest surviving epic. You know, there might have been epics before that, but this is the oldest surviving one. This Epic of Gilgamesh, this epic storytelling that wasn't for record keeping, that wasn't for any sort of practical, day-to-day operation sort of purpose. It was a tale. It gives us, the reason that we look at the Epic of Gilgamesh so much, and why it's so important, is that it gives us clues. It tells us about the culture. Okay? That's why, and that's what we'll be looking at in class. Now, Babylon, and like I said, there's a whole list of different city-states that emerge and gain dominance. You have Sargon and Akkadian that gains control. You have dynasties of Assyrians, different groups that come in, but by about 2000 BCE, you have the dominance of the Babylonians in Mesopotamia, and we take a look at them a lot. Babylonians are actually going to stretch out of this area, I'm highlighting here. This is sort of, I'm really doing this badly. Oh, God. Okay, this is sort of your area of Mesopotamia, and then they're also stretching here into what is known as the Jordan River Valley as well, in the Middle East, where we see Jerusalem. So, let's talk a little bit about the Babylonians. Greatest ruler is Hammurabi, 1792 to 1750 BCE. The reason that we take a look at Hammurabi, and you will see excerpts of it in class, is we have a surviving uniform code of laws. Now, when I say uniform code of laws, it applied to all these, I'm going to go back a slide real quick. It applied to all these areas of the Babylonian Empire. However, I should note that they don't apply to everybody equally. So it's uniform in that it's across the empire. It's not just in the city-state of Babylon, but different laws for different people. There's a social structure component to it. Now, this is the top of what are many stone pillars in which Hammurabi's law code will be placed all throughout the empire. And then the code would be listed and written in cuneiform below. This is right here, where my pointer is, this is Hammurabi receiving these law codes from Shamash. Once again, it's a god in Sumerian culture. You don't need to worry about it too much. What you see, ultimately, is while Hammurabi doesn't think he's a god himself, he does go ahead and say these laws are from a god. So, once again, if you are violating Hammurabi's law code, you're not just violating a military conqueror who took over your land. You are violating a religious law, and that's a big deal, particularly in the ancient world. As I mentioned before, it was based on retribution, an eye for an eye. If somebody wrongs you, you wrong them back. All social classes are included in this. Okay, so you typically had your rulers, your priests, your merchants, your poor working farmers, and your slaves, and they are all in this code. However, the laws don't apply equally to them. Women are also in there, and there are even limited protections for slaves. But the laws, the punishment varied based on class. They were written on stone pillars, as I mentioned. I already said that. And another contribution of the Babylonians, they were known for great work in astronomy and astrology as they continue on this path of, development. Okay? All right, that's about it for Mesopotamia. We're going to take a look at some individual documents in class to sort of gain a better knowledge of these folks, but this is sort of your background on it. Thanks for listening. See you in class. Peace.